Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Wildlife Action Adventure Camp on the Little PD River in Mullins. We're focused on the upcoming day camp and overnight camps, and we're visiting with Carolyn Jebailey, the Vice President of the Environment. Now that's Environmental Vice President. Excuse me. Carolyn, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Greg. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. This has been a treat being out here. Of course, it's Thursday. Bunny and Frank will be back with us a little bit tomorrow.
Okay.
And obviously Pete Mulford was with us yesterday. It's so exciting to get other folks who aren't out here all the time. Pete yesterday and Susan Carter pumping up the Foxtrot Festival on Tuesday. Obviously to kick off the week with Bunny and Frank was truly a treat. But we want to have the opportunity, since you've been around for right at a year now, you've got a pretty good feel of what's happening out here.
What I've been doing, Greg, is I came last summer and started teaching the kids pottery. We spent some time talking about the Native American way of making things that come from the earth, and this goes back to what we try to do as far as teaching kids about stewardship. And to learn about stewardship of the earth, we got to sort of give them a connection to the earth. The majority of, I'd say most kids, most adults don't have any real meaningful connection to the earth today, unless they hunt or fish. So a lot of these kids, it's their first time. They get here to camp. They're outdoors for the first time, and we're trying to give them some sense of why we should even be concerned about the earth, why we should even care. So we start by, getting them connected to the outdoors, getting them to look at trees and wildlife and nature. But the next thing we try to do is sort of give them some sense of that these things are important to us. They provide us things. It was amazing to me that the majority of the kids last year did not know that their plates and all of their bowls, the clay ones, came from dirt.
Wow.
And so we went to the clay and we talked about clay and the fact that it was earth, and we spent some time, playing out where these things come from, and they each had to make a bowl or a cup before they left. This was some of the things that they made, last summer, and we hand coiled, just like the Native Americans would have done. We worked everything from hand coiling, and then we dried them in the sun and pit fired everything, so that they had some sense that this was something that came up from the earth. A lot of them had a lot of comments about, boy, you sure wouldn't have had a lot of dinnerware, would you? Because it took so long to make a piece.
Now, Carolyn, the kids are, what ages are putting this together?
Last summer when we started, we had ages 9 through 14.
Okay.
And even the 9-year-olds did, the small pieces like this.
Great.
So everyone made at least one piece. They got to take them home when they were done.
Wow.
But it sort of all started, the reason I started doing the hand-built pit-fired pottery was there was an Apache Indian chief that I had met one summer. He was actually the medicine man of an Apache reservation where I visited, and his comment was that he asked me, he said, "You know what's wrong? You know what ails the white man?" And I said, "No, tell me." And he said his hands and feet rarely make contact with the earth. And so he never has a sense that he's in any way related or connected. He said he gets in his car every morning, drives to work, gets out on his parking garage, rides the elevator up, gets out in his office, stays all day on his office, air-conditioned office, gets back in his car, goes home on the paved highway, gets out on his paved driveway, goes back in his house. He said, so he never really has his hands and his feet touch the earth at all. So that's the one connection I try to make with the kids, is that we're connected to this. We use items, we make things that we borrow from the earth, that these are things that we share this earth with.
Now, the kids that are out here, what percentage normally would be kids that are not real familiar with the earth, or most of the kids, or most of the parents?
Unless you have, hunters or fishermen or kids who go camping,
right.
a lot of the kids for the first time have never been in the woods, for the first time, and they come here excited and they're really wide open to it. They really are perfect, for teaching.
That's great.
And I guess, too, this goes back to Bunny's vision way back when, at first, and we do this, too, we fight the environmental issues on a larger scale. But the first thing we have to do is give people a sense that they're connected, give especially kids a sense that there's a reason, there's a reason we're taking care of this. There's a reason for stewarding and caring for the earth. So, you have to give them some sense of touch or some sensorial experience while they're here. And then we have to get them to start figuring out that they're responsible for caring for the earth. And then that moves into the next stage, which is caring for each other, for people.
And you see a good bit of that as well.
Yeah, their whole perception, about this and what they, and then pretty soon they'll walk by a can on the ground and say, that's not supposed to be there, and,
right.
And pick it up.
Carolyn, do you remember I want to get into your first trip in the woods, but at the same time, for viewers who may not have called Bunny and Frank earlier this week, may not be able to be around tomorrow, what's the best phone number for a viewer to call? I think there's a 1-800 number.
Right.
For folks to call if they want to learn more about...
or the website.
The website.
www.wildlifeaction.com.
Right.
Even the application, even the camp applications on the website.
Great.
So they can fill out the application and send it in.
Okay, and that 800 number, I think, excuse me, I've written down so many phone numbers. Of course, 800-753-2264. Of course, you're out here at camp. You don't need to worry about phone numbers. You just need to worry about being a keeper of the earth and obviously focusing on that. 800-753-2264. You think about so many activities. What about yourself? When was the first trip in the woods for you?
Actually, I grew up in Miami, Florida, and I probably would never have left the city except for my brave parents who took, there were 11 of us, and they piled us in the car.
Oh, come on. 11 children or 11 total?
Children.
Oh, come on.
They piled us in a car with tents. We did not have a camper or pop-up or any of that, with tents. And we took a 2-week trip out west, stopped at all the Anasazi ruins, the pueblos, the cliff dwellings, the Grand Canyon, and we camped. I mean, we really camped, cooked over the campfire every day, lived out of the tent. And we did this for 2 weeks every year since I was 7 until I left for college. So, and it was just an annual trip everywhere. I mean, I've been to every state in the Union that way, camping.
Oh, come on.
So, yeah, it was wonderful.
Wow,
so, I mean, when my father says, I don't understand how you got into this environmental stuff. I said, Dad.
Yeah, you point right at him. That's right. How about the other 10? Have many of them gotten in the environment much? Or?
A lot of them are very active. I have a sister right now who's fighting to save a real important gardens in Orlando. The sister in Florence is very involved.
You have a sister in Florence?
Sister in Florence is very involved in our Jeffries Creek project. We're trying to work in Wildlife Action, and several other groups have combined together to form an alliance for the Save Preserve Jeffries Creek project.
Okay, and that's probably something that our PD viewers would be
right.
more familiar with than the Strand viewers or the
right.
southeastern North Carolina viewers.
So.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But what happens is if the kids have some appreciation of the outdoors and nature, and then they have that connection, they will care. They will get involved in these environmental issues that will affect all of us later. And we do a good bit of that through Wildlife Action. We are very involved in the Horry County comprehensive planning process, which has a lot to do with the way land will be used in the next 5 years.
Great.
The idea is to sit down and plan ahead for green space and preservation of our natural resources, for keeping things we consider treasures, the Carolina Bays, for example, which are unusual geologic features of South Carolina.
Is that right?
Which is where originally our Venus flytrap and our pitcher plants came from, and only South Carolina and North Carolina have these two unusual species of plants because of the unusual geographic features of the bays. So, we're very invested in saving these things for the future and for our children, so that they have those. And as kids learn, and lots of times kids are the ones that kind of spur the parents on now. So as they appreciate it, they will also begin to take an interest. There's a wonderful story in Keepers of the Earth, which is a whole set of what they've done is Native American stories along with environmental activities for kids. And there's a wonderful story in here of a little boy who was 8, and when he started hearing about how air pollution was killing the trees in California, he and his friends started a Save the Tree project. And they were able to gather seeds and plant cups full of seeds and put in just a variety of, tree farms or acreage of trees. And he's still doing this. I think he's in his teen years now, but it was once he got connected, once he felt the passion for it, he started this project. So I think he called it Tree People, and we try to do that here. Where the next project I'd like to do, besides the pottery, is to start a Native American garden circle where the kids actually get to garden, and we'll plant seeds, and they'll have that whole sense of things that not only come from the earth, but grow from the earth.
Great. Yeah, let's talk about that. But, of course, about how did you originally get into pottery in the first place? You got a pretty big piece there.
This is a piece I made with the kids last summer, and they were, I was trying to show them the possibilities that we don't, we can make anything from dirt. And I actually have a ceramic degree from Francis Marion. I went back to school about 10 years ago and got a ceramic degree in pottery from Francis Marion. And it fascinated me the way the Native Americans built, which was all hand-built, and I do a variety of hand-building. And the kids especially love it. But my great-great-grandmother was Osage Indian, so the whole Native American way of doing things has always been really interesting to me. So
when you see some of the kids out here for the first time, and of course the ones who aren't growing up with hunting or fishing families, of course that aspect, or haven't been out and didn't go out with their 10 brothers and sisters out west. I mean, for the experience for them, oftentimes it's potentially either scary, or at the same time very thrilling. Do you see a lot of folks just thrilled to go back and tell their parents?
Mostly thrilled. The few that are fearful, I'd say we might have a day of fear. And like they'll be afraid to get in the Blackwater Lake over there, and because they're not used to a black water, and we get in with them, and after a day they're fine. It's the overcome, or the snakes. Frank works with them with the snakes. They get to walk around and get up real close, and it's that they get that sensory experience where they get to go up, touch, look, feel it, put their hands in the dirt. They see the possibilities of what you can do, and they walk away with that appreciation. I know this week when we had the 200 first graders, Frank always asked them, how many of y'all hate snakes? And you'd be amazed at how many of them raised their hands. But after it's over, and he talks about the appreciation, what they do here, how we would have rats and mice taking over, our habitat here if we didn't have snakes, they have a much different feeling about it, much different appreciation.
Wow.
They have a much different appreciation about how long it takes to make, a clay bowl after they've made one.
Right, sure.
And the fact that this is dirt that took time to form, and we even talk about where clay comes from. So I think once they get to touch it, they get in it.
Now, of course, last year was your first year in that position, joining the camp, and of course the excitement for you having seen it. Can you go ahead and break down for viewers who a little bit, just to give them a sense? And I know you're the environmental vice president, but just what a day camp is like, or maybe give folks a sense of what all's happening.
Sure. They start about 7 o'clock in the morning. The bugle goes off, and they have to line up around the flagpole and pledge allegiance, and they get some early morning instructions, usually from our director, Bunny Beeson. And then they have an early breakfast outside under the picnic shelter. And as soon as breakfast is over, they go to the chapel where they begin the day. They always begin the day with some kind of prayer, and last year we had a variety of religious denominations. So we might have a Native American prayer, we might have a Baptist minister out here, or at one point we even had a little girl who sang a piece from her Jewish bat mitzvah. So they'll have some little ceremony early in the morning in the chapel. Then they go from chapel, and there's sort of a variety of stations throughout the camp. They might, half of them might go to canoeing, the others to archery, the rifle range. Some of them came to pottery, or we had even a Waccamaw Native American out here last year teaching Indian lore, and he taught things I didn't know about, like how to cook in a gourd, or how to cook in a gourd, or how to make a gourd canteen. He made gourd lanterns with the kids. He went into all the dynamics and engineering of a teepee, how teepees are engineered for air and fire and that kind of thing. And they would just move from, about every 45 minutes, they'd move from station to station throughout the refuge.
Right.
They would go to, Frank for wildlife study. They would go to one of the other, I think it was Jerry Blunt, who taught hunting ethics. Jerry Blunt taught hunting ethics, and that was a way of talking about all that you have to know if you're a hunter. Things, again, like I haven't been a big hunter, so there were things I learned, that, for example, all private land is posted in South Carolina, so, and how you have to get permission, to hunt on someone's land. But it was and it just goes, after they go from station to station, there's a lunch break, And in the afternoon, they have a good bit of free time where they can swim, or they can just hang out in the cabin, or they can just walk.
It's co-ed.
It's co-ed.
You've got, and I think Bunny talked about on Monday a little bit, you've got possibly 40 boys, 20 girls.
20 girls.
And they work pretty well together, obviously, like a school setting?
Well, it was interesting last year because I saw so much more competition in the girls that I'm used to, because
Really?
they're divided into tribes. They're all divided up into tribal names, and they have to act and work together cohesively as a tribe. And so they're given tribal names: cougar, hawks, and owls, or eagles, or wolves, and they have to act as a cohesive group. So there's a lot of teamwork that's taught. They're given a variety of problems to solve, or obstacles throughout the refuge that they have to overcome. And they have to work this out as a tribal team.
And as the tribes, as boys and girls, or just
no,
all
and
girls?
all the girls were in the Cougar tribe
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year,
yeah.
which was real interesting because they became really more competitive than I had seen in a group of girls.
Yeah.
And were winning almost every one of the competitions, the canoe races and the swimming, and it was amazing. But we have such big groups of boys; they're usually divided into two tribes.
Right.
But,
sure.
We've always kept them, as a separate group of girls and then the two boys groups. And we try to keep a variety of ages in both
Sure,
groups.
yeah,
so
I was
that
about to ask.
yeah.
So, of course, for the day camp, I think it's what ages? 6 to 11?
6 to 11.
6 to 11,
So-
and of course the overnights, of which
Yeah.
I think there are 3 sessions
Three
all throughout
sessions.
July, June and July.
And in the overnight, that's where we have the opportunity to do a lot more teamwork.
Right.
They have a lot more work together as a cohesive tribe, whereas the
that's-
day camp is different.
Right, and that's ages 9 to
9
14.
to 14.
Okay, well, let's just share with the viewers a little bit. We got about 10 minutes. You
Okay.
think about so many of the activities that you're involved in, and even
Right.
spearheading that. But of course, the day camp is from 8 to 1.
Right.
And the
'Cause
overnights would be, they are here from Sunday through Friday.
For Friday morning, right. And they're here overnight, of course, the whole time, the whole 5.5 days. And they camp here, they eat here, they're with their tribe the
Right.
whole time they're here. So they really get a little bit different experience that way.
For y'all, of course, you're thrilled to see anyone out here. The folks who already have an appreciation for nature, who know nature, who've gotten
Right.
their feet or their hands
Right.
in the soil,
Right.
as the medicine man was talking about. That same aspect must be incredibly thrilling to see the folks who haven't. When you're trying to encourage folks to come out and experience wildlife action for the first time, who are you really want to get to the folks who haven't.
Who
I guess.
haven't. And,
yeah.
and a lot of parents come in and say, do I sign them up for pottery? They've never touched clay.
Right.
And I always say I've yet to find a kid who didn't like to put their hands in clay. Not once. Not ever. And by the time it's over, they're teaching me. They're showing me a few things. We
Yeah.
had one little girl last year who sat down and made a whole set of beads.
No.
She really did. She'd finished her bowl and she made a set of clay beads. Or they'll tell you what they'd like to do next. And we try to leave enough, flexibility there too. They get to have as much fun within, as long as they're safe. We try to give them as much latitude and as much freedom. I try not to say no much at all in clay class, because that is all about expression. It's all about them getting in here and finding a way to work on their own, but also together. And they really do respond when they're here. Like I said, I don't think anybody's ever gone home unhappy, or left saying they had a miserable time.
That's
So,
great. And when you see that, of course, for kids, you're talking about lots of different kids from all over, lots of different lots of different strata.
Walks of life, yeah.
Sure.
And the kids who, you can tell a lot of times the kids who have grown up in more rural areas, they already have sort of an appreciation too. They've been on the farm, or they've been, and so they have a little bit different sense about what this is about. The other day there was a father in one of the first grade groups, and he had talked about his ponds, and he said, I know there's supposed to be a number of things I should be looking for in my ponds. And this is an activity we do with the kids while we're here. I teach the water quality, which is all about looking at what's in ponds and whether the ponds are healthy or not. And he said, I knew I was supposed to be looking for certain things, and I gave him the sheet of the various insects you want to see in healthy pond water. And he looked down and said, I see these all the time, but I would have had no idea it means my water is good quality.
Yeah.
So the kids get really excited about that, and it's like I said, it's another one of those close up. They get to get a real bird's eye view of looking at this stuff and what it's for and why it's there, and the fact that it has a purpose.
Yeah, what first got you interested in this, Carolyn? Was it those early trips, early on at age 8?
I've always had a real sense for the outdoors. I've always been a camper, hiker. I'm a kayaker. I've always enjoyed it. I got into more of the environmental fighting on a big sprawl issue in Florence that I took on 2 years ago with a large group of people, grassroots group, and that sort of blossomed into other sprawl issues. I also sit in on some of the planning committee meetings for I-73 and the Horry County Steering Committee, Comprehensive Planning Committee, which has a lot to do with affecting policy and change in this area. So,
that's the Envision 2025.
The Envision 2025.
I had Lisa Boursier with us last week. The Public Information Officer from Horry County was with us last Wednesday. It was fascinating hearing her talk about that. That's high interest for the county. Of course, this being the first time Horry County, of course, you know the bulk of our viewers in the PD in southeastern North Carolina, but for the folks in Horry, to recognize a real push for the future.
Right,
it's
and that's what we try to do here. We say, well, you take what you've learned here and you apply it to a much broader application, which is in your community. You know, you go forward from here into your community and you get involved in things in your community, and the Envisions 2025 is definitely a good example of that.
You know, it's so great at wildlifeaction.com, and I think I looked at it particularly last year. There was a whole litany of things. Obviously, there's a five-point laws or rules, but there was some exciting things there about, you know, if you want to affect some change, you also have to provide some positive things to change too, or, you know, provide some alternatives. And that was a critical point. You know, oftentimes you think about folks fighting for the environment, you think they're just only doing that and not interested in the practical side of future. But obviously there's got to be alternatives that you look at as well.
And that's exactly why we talk to the kids about the, you know, we put back more than we take. It's that idea that you go forward with, and it's sort of the broader vision of the whole reason we do this, which is, you know, the final hope is that we do have some care and stewardship of the earth brought forward for the future. That, you know, right now it's very easy to see South Carolina as just endless land, and endless possibility, and endless potential for development. But then we would not have this. We would lose this. And so, you know, the idea is that we give the kids a sense of why we want to save this. You know, when I walk by the bog and I talk to them about the bog, I ask them, why do we keep this dark, dirty hole? You know, what is this for? And as soon as they, you know, have a sense about the plant life that's in it and the habitat that it supports and the fact that it filters our water, you know, they have a much different feeling about why we have to care for it.
I bet they do, and I bet you have a ton of parents who are thrilled from much of what they're learning from their kids after a week at Wildlife Action Adventure Camp.
And the teachers that come out here, they have a perfect hands-on classroom. We have a variety of workshops and classes that we teach throughout the year through the Resource Education Center, so they can bring classes out and they can apply some of the science they're trying to teach in the classroom to here. I mean, they can come out and study trees, they can come out and study wildlife, they can come out and talk about water quality and wetlands. We have a Native American stewardship class. We have just a variety of hands-on classes where, you know, they can sort of make it more real when they get them out here. The science becomes much more real. And a teacher asked me yesterday, she said, you know, what do you do if you want to do this full time? And I talked to her about, there are two programs now, the two environmental science programs. One's at Coastal in wetlands and coastal marine ecology, and there's one at Clemson on environmental science. And she said, I really got to go home with that because the kids are always asking me, you know, about ways that they can get involved in this as a career.
And it's been 12 months for you now. Last May, 12 months to date for your involvement in wildlife action. And obviously, it seems like this is something you've been involved in forever. But not directly with Bunny and the folks out here. What's been the most exciting for you as you look back over the last 12 months, knowing that you've been through a full camp last year and you're getting ready for one this year?
Oh, definitely the kids.
The kids.
The kids, yeah. You just can't help it. I mean, when they leave, you know, they come up and they hug you and they tell you, oh, thank you, Miss Carolyn. They really love it, you know. And they're so appreciative. And you know, just even if they're here for class for just a day, just to visit.
Day camp,
Just a day camp.
Or just to visit,
or even just to visit
like
when
you did
they're
last week,
where they're just here going through the refuge and they're for their first time, you know, and it's the kids. That's why we do it, for sure.
That's wonderful. And of course, you know, there's so many aspects of introducing those kids to so much new life, and you find that folks are really wanting to get their shoes off, maybe even get their socks off and get their feet to the earth.
Although we tell them, you know, you're taking your chance if you're barefoot. I try to let them go barefoot a little bit. We want them to do that. We want them to be, you know, barefoot, and we want their feet and hands to touch the earth.
Those are great words. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, Carolyn.
Sure.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. Put back more than we take. You know, Wildlife Action slogan, it's critical. You heard Carolyn say it at virtually everything she was saying. Put back more than we take. Put back more than we take. 800-753-2264. It's a critical number. Get it down. 800-753-2264. Take the time to call. You can hear why it's all about put back more than we take. It's local people helping solve local problems. There's a lot to it. WildlifeAction.com's got some critical information, whether it's the Environmental Vice President, Carolyn Jebailey, whether it's the founder and president of Wildlife Action or their activities director. There's a lot of folks interested, a lot of volunteers oftentimes interested in getting out here to make sure that children understand what it means to give back more than you take. Take the time to go online or give them a call.